This is Jhyrah.
And this is Max. This is
This
Candy
is
on the
Candy
Heat.
Hang on the Heat. Today we have some action, not really action-packed news, but a lot of signing, drafting, roster news. Um, the Olympics have started, so things going on there. Uh, Draft just happened about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago now. Um, Already some summer league games going on. Uh, and free agency, of course, is not necessarily coming to an end, but definitely slowing down. So for the most part, all of the big names have already been signed. So we're going to go ahead and just hop right into it and talk about the draft. Um, Anyone who immediately sticks out to you that you're like, this is the guy that I think went to the perfect place, perfect fit, and they're immediately going to be able to be productive from day one. So not necessarily who you think is going to be the best player, but the player who you think is going to they just went to the best place for them that will help them succeed day one.
Let's see. I'm very high on Devin Carter to the Kings.
Okay.
I know people aren't talking about him as much, but I mean his college game was crazy. He was one of the best players in the Big East, and you could argue that the Big East is the best conference in basketball. But I mean he's just really great defense and really good scoring. I think he gives you exactly what Davion Mitchell gave you, but he gives you scoring instead as well. So I mean, there's that, and then also, I mean, Montes Buzelis being able to fall to the Bulls, I think is also a huge win. I know the Bulls haven't had a lot to be excited about in a long time, but I think this is definitely like a start in the right direction. As far as like being able to be a good building block. I mean, Buzelis was talked about being like the number one player in the draft, which I mean, you could argue a lot of players have also been like, oh, this player could go number one, this player could go number one. But I know a lot of people said Buzelis is really good, and I believe he played either with or against Sar and Rochassier. And I think he played better than them, I want to say.
Yeah. I really like I mean, we were talking about it a little bit before we started the recording, but I really do also like the Montes pick. I think just to play devil's advocate, I think the one thing I would say to nag the pick is the fact that they just did trade for Josh Giddey, and those are two very similar players. And I think to fully maximize Montes, you're gonna have him on ball a lot, but I think to fully maximize Josh Giddey in the same sense, you also have to have him on the ball. There's still Lonzo. I know there's been a lot of talk to them like cutting him or trying to find like a buyout. Um, but I just think it's gonna be not necessarily hectic, but it's gonna be very jam packed in that point guard room. So they're gonna have to figure out what they're gonna do. And I mean, and beyond that, they still have Ao, who isn't necessarily a very typical point guard, but I mean, he has played a little bit of that in college and in the NBA. So it'll be interesting to see what Billy Donovan does there with the whole situation and who starts and who doesn't. I mean, I definitely think you'd give the nod to Josh Giddey over Montes just because Josh Giddey's already averaged 17 and 8 in his career, or Montes is, an A. But I think talking about like players that just are going to be able to succeed from day one, I really, I was telling you about this earlier when we were talking. I really like the Zach Edey pick. I thought earlier, me, Robert, and Max had like a group chat, and when the draft was going on, we were kind of just like, not that it's a horrible pick, but it's kind of a reach. But I think after watching Zach Edey in his first summer league game, I mean, not to get too big for my boots, but I really think this is the perfect pick for them because after losing Steven Adams, um, like he's still on their team, but he's just not. He's definitely not going to be the same player that he was. And I think Zach Edey comes in and immediately does everything that they need: rim protection because they were horrible at defense, but then also rebounding because their big man JJJ cannot rebound and save his life. That is literally immediately what Zach Edey does at a tremendously high level. But then also then like you can see not only I mean throughout his whole entire college career was he doing this, but also in his first summer league game, you can just see how pretty his post game is. I I genuinely believe there's very few players in the NBA who can guard him one-on-one in the post. I'd probably say like Giannis, AD, and like I don't know, and maybe Wemby just because of length. But even then, it's like he's so physically opposing, but he's also so like light on his feet where he can hit you. You think he's going to his left shoulder, but then he turns over, goes on his right shoulder, and he's comfortable hitting both sides. Honestly, he looked like he ran the floor pretty well. I know people are going to talk about he's not going to be able to play defense the best in the NBA, but I mean, there's tons of drop coverage centers who have been successful in the modern day NBA. Brooke Lopez, for instance, they literally won a championship with him playing drop coverage. I don't think it's going to be a problem. Zubac, the list goes on and on of centers who play drop coverage, and they're perfectly fine. I think he'll be okay. But then I also really like Rob Dillingham to the Timberwolves. I would have liked to see the Spurs keep that pick, but I understand, going in different directions. But I really do like Rob Dillingham. We were just talking about this is such a good pick for the Timberwolves because you could tell during their postseason run, beyond their starting lineup, their bench really has no true scoring identity other than Naz Reid. And not to even, I guess, necessarily knock Naz Reid, but there's only so much that a center can do, like, especially a bench like center can do. So I think having Rob Dillingham, but then also their later first round pick, and Terrence Shannon, two just guys who can just go out and you need a bucket, they can go get it anyway. But then also Terrence Shannon does add a little bit of defense. Rob Dillingham, of course, doesn't really add any, but I think as creativity goes, he is immediately going to be a top 5 most creative player in the NBA in his creation skills. So I'm really excited to see what he does. And honestly, I'll be excited. I'm interested to see if who's in the closing lineup, him at the end of games or Mike Conley. I think that's going to be one of my biggest things to look for going into this like new season. Yeah, but anybody who you'd say is like the steal of the draft where you like they should not have fell as far? I know you said Montes earlier, but anybody else other than him?
Yeah, as far as like players that I thought should have gone higher, I like Isaiah Collier a lot. I think that's definitely a steal. I mean, it's a point guard is what the Jazz needed. The Jazz draft in general was just they got a bunch of really great pieces. Collier, Williams, and Filipowski are all like first round talents that like, and some are supposed to be like lottery talents like a couple months ago. But I love Collier's game a lot. He looked really solid in the first game. I wouldn't necessarily it was like a steal, but as far as like passing the eye test straight away, Kella Ware and Jared McCain both looked phenomenal in their games. McCain just looked like a really, really confident in going to the basket. He didn't look scared at all for being an undersized guard, and he looked really fast. Had a lot of great passes as well. I mean, that one-handed weak hand lob up to their center was crazy.
Disgusting.
Yeah. And then Ware, I mean, he pushes Bam out to the 4, which is what maybe, I mean, I don't know if they'll run it like that, but it would allow Bam to be more creative. I mean, because Bam's a guard and a 6'9" body. I mean, people talk about that all the time. So getting to see him move off the ball and not have to be like guarding the tallest player and being stuck in the post, that would be interesting as well.
Yeah. I definitely I like all those picks. I think immediately for me, I think me, you, and Robert all really hopped on when we saw them get drafted this late was Dalton Connect. I know he hasn't looked the greatest, and he's currently playing right now, actually, as we record this in a summer league game. But I just think immediately he was already supposed to be a top 10 pick, and I know this draft is a lot more volatile than other drafts just because it was more so drafting on fits rather than really talent. Yeah. Which I think is a lot different than other drafts. But I just think that Dalton Connect does exactly what the Lakers need, shooting, and at an extremely high level in almost every single way possible. You need someone to shoot it moving, he can do it for you. You need someone to, spot up in the corner and then get an outlet pass from AD or Braun, he can do that for you at a high level. But even that, he's not just a shooter at like a legitimate like 6'6", 6'7". He's able to put it on the floor. He's a really good, like pretty fluid athlete. So I'm really excited to see how JJ Redick can make that work. And honestly, I was talking to Robert about it today. I really would like to see Dalton Knecht start, mainly just because I think his fit beside people like LeBron and AD and D'Lo just works so well because all of those players are very much
So you'd
score
start him
first
over
players.
Reeves?
Yeah, honestly, I really would. I think Reeves is a more of an established player just because he's been in the league longer. He has come off the bench. Yeah, I think he's actually found most of his success coming off the bench when he can run his own unit. I just think Dalton Knecht, you can almost see in the summer league games that he just really hasn't been able to get his full rhythm. And I think that's because they're still playing him like as Tennessee, even though he's playing against more NBA talent. Where I think in a system where he would be starting for the Lakers, he's going to be like the fourth option in a starting
Yeah,
lineup.
I mean, and Braun's going to find him as well, so he doesn't have to worry about
Exactly.
running
Yeah.
around a lot to find someone. Braun will find you.
And he's one of those players that when you find him, he's going to make the shot. But then also, like, I feel like he is like a good like secondary passer too. So even then, you pass to him, and the defender makes a good closeout. He can either drive and score from there, or he can pass in and find another better shot. So I'm really excited to see what Dalton Knecht and JJ Redick can do because I mean JJ Redick is probably one of the best not only movement shooters in NBA history, but just shooters in general. So I think having someone like that as your coach will really help you and it'll show you different parts of your game that you didn't even know you could unlock.
Yeah.
I mean,
but again,
also,
sorry,
you go ahead. No, you got it.
I'll say, I mean, this might be jumping ahead a little bit, but I mean, I feel like we talked about this a lot, where it's just a draft where the rich got richer. I mean, people that needed pieces like win right now got it straight away, and they were able to get it. They didn't have to do anything. Like the Lakers getting Knecht, they picked it 17th. They were just in the playoffs. The Sixers got Jared McCain. I mean, the T-Wolves got Rob Dillingham. I mean, like that. Like these are all like crazy things that people are allowed to get just to instantly add them to a piece that helps them win now. So I think that's why we saw people maybe go for the little older guys instead of going for super young. So maybe they didn't really care about age because they need to win now. That's why I think the Celtics took Baylor Shireman. I mean, he's like a 22, 23-year-old, but they could have gone for Flip, who was a younger guy, and they needed a center. But Shireman comes in and is instantly able to carve out a role, and I think he challenges Sam Hauser for minutes.
Yeah, no, I agree with the Shireman take of him taking. I literally, as soon as you said that, I think I like Sam Hauser. I watched him and his brother both throughout their college careers, but I really like if you just watched Bailey Shireman at Creighton. My fault, I was blanking. Literally him, Trey Alexander, and Nembhard when they had Ryan Nembhard. They were just such a good duo or a good trio because they all like you could see like all of them were able to score in different ways. And I mean that Shireman has insane range and he's another great movement shooter. Very similar to Dalton Knecht. Also, he's become a really good passer over his career, but then also he's gotten a little bit better at defending. So I mean, I think he fits that mold of the Celtics are going for. Definitely like a mold that a lot of the NBA is going for of just players who are bigger and can do a little bit of everything. But then, they might have one primary thing that is their strength. And of course, that's his shooting. But then also, like you said, you were talking earlier a little bit about Jared McCain. I mean, I don't think there could really get any better picks for the Sixers. Like, not only can he be a good backup point guard, but he's he's someone who's very sure of himself. I think that's a problem that a lot of rookies, when they're coming into the league, they can falter a little bit because they're a little bit hesitant. They don't fully know the role. I think Jared McCain, coming from a team that was decently star-studded at Duke, where he wasn't really the number one guy, but he was he was kind of a piece. I think that will also help him really be a star role player immediately from the jump. But at the end of the day, he's a tough nosed